everyone. It's Friday. That means it's time to deploy. I'm your host, John Bristow. I'm the community director at Octopus Deploy. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention and joining me here today. Jim Pelletier, unfortunately, is away. He is not on leave. He is ill, but we all wish him the best and hope for a very speedy recovery. This is the internet show that talks a little bit about the news and tech trends that have occurred over the past week relevant to Octopus Deploy. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I will now, through the magic of software, switch over. CDCon is coming to Japan. So if you are at all interested, you can submit a call for proposal to this event. CDCon is brought to you by the CD Foundation, the Continuous Delivery Foundation. This is one of their marquee events, and CDCon is coming to Japan, as I said. And so the CFP is currently open and will close on September 10th. If you're at all curious about attending an event like this, you can go ahead and check out the website and submit a talk and get involved, which is great. Talking a little bit about Octopus news, we've been really busy at Octopus, which has been great. We've been talking a lot about multi-tenancy on the Octopus side. You'll hear a lot about us both on social media and through other means around multi-tenancy. Teams are feverishly working away on new features, etc. I've been talking to a number of the program managers at Octopus, which has been great. We've been working really hard on getting better support around Kubernetes deployments, etc. You may have seen some of our features that we've shipped recently. You can find those if you go to our roadmap, which is listed here at the bottom. And you'll see a whole bunch of things that are both planned and released. So the ones that we've shipped, as well as the ones we're planning to ship. Some of these are available already as an EAP. But if you're all curious, you can check out the roadmap, which is at octopus.com/roadmap or roadmap.octopus.com. You can make that your homepage, if not a bookmark. So as I said, we've been really busy at Octopus. It's been great. We've been talking a lot about a variety of things, including multi-tenancy. So this is a post from Andy. He's a member of our team. And this is a post that talks a little bit about what is multi-tenancy. So oftentimes, most folks, multi-tenancy is one of those terms that's been kind of batted around over a number of years. And it typically refers to a scenario around how you architect your software. So tenancy is basically sort of like a SKU or a slice in which you view your architecture and where various parts and pieces live, et cetera. Multi-tenancy in terms of deployments can also come in handy. And in fact, it's something that we tout quite heavily. There's a lot of ways in which you can view this. And Andy talks about how those things are relative to a deployment. So you can do things like split by customer, you can split by geo, by business model. So the model that you employ within your application can obviously be a factor relative to multi-tenancy. So that's something to consider. Also by hosting solution. So if you're a multi-cloud vendor, or rather you support multi-cloud, that's something that you can certainly think about. And everything in between, as Andy says. So this is a start of a blog series that Andy's writing. And I think that if you're at all curious around how multi-tenancy works, what it is, what are some of the things you have to think about, this is a good post to get started. And so Andy kind of lays it out. Relative to Octopus Deploy, tenants and multi-tenancy is something that we built in out of the box. So if you're at all curious about finding out more, you can go visit our website. We have use cases, we have case studies, we have all kinds of literature around multi-tenancy. It is something that is difficult to get right within an architecture, not because of the technical challenges, but rather because of the fact that retroactively adding tenancy to an application is hard. You have to basically, it's kind of like renovating your house. You have to move a lot of things out of the way. People are still living in the house when you're renovating it, i.e. people are still using your software when you're changing it. And adding tenancy, the capability of tenancy around an application is difficult. What you can do to help mitigate that problem is use a solution like Octopus. Octopus allows you to deploy an application without a notion of tenancy, but with tenancy supported in a number of different ways. Now, it obviously differs on terms of how you support it, but that's something that you can think about going forward. In addition to that, we also have this new white paper called A Modern View of Multi-Tenancy. So Steve, who's a member of our team, wrote this white paper. It's not too long. It's about 30 or so pages. And Steve goes through all the various aspects around multi-tenancy and gives it obviously a flavor relative to Octopus. So, like the post that Andy wrote, this is a white paper that goes into the history on the history around multi-tenancy, how you can approach it from both an application perspective, but also from maybe a deployment solution perspective. Things that you have to take care of, things you have to consider. So rather than kind of iterating through the white paper, I think what we'll do is we'll probably have a chat with Steve at some point in the future and talk to him about this white paper and see what he has to think. But this is something you can definitely download. This is available off of our website again at our multi-tenancy page. If you're all curious at seeing what that looks like, I'll just bring it up here. You go to octopus.com and you take a look at, say, for example, our products. You can see we'll get a variety of views and stuff. You can see all the features that we have built in here. And this is not new if you've seen the page history from a history perspective. We have a bunch of resources as well, and we're going to be adding a white papers location for that. But you can go to /multi-tenancy and you'll find it there. Awesome. Speaking of webinars, we have a couple of webinars coming up, including our community town hall, which is at the end of the month. But these two I want to highlight here, one from Guestline and another from ClearMeasure. We are partnering up with them. Guestline is going to be talking about, surprise, surprise, multi-tenancy, in particular, how they save 2,000 hours per release using tenants in Octopus. So Guestline is a very popular hotel support service, ISV, for folks who are doing sort of like residences, etc. And so they help you manage those things. And so Guestline is an ISV that provides a service, software service for that management aspect. And they utilize Octopus. And so in this webinar, they'll be talking about how they save a lot of time and effort and energy because of multi-tenancy built into Octopus. And then ClearMeasure, friends of Octopus, they're a partner of ours, very well-known implementer of solutions, will be doing a webinar entitled Database Deployments with Octopus and ClearMeasure. So they'll be talking about a whole bunch of things. So it'll be hosted by Jeffrey Palermo, and he'll be talking about how you do database deployments with Octopus. So that's going to be cool. Something to check out. All right, so as I said, lots of stuff happening there. Just moving right along, some of the news and information we saw during the week. So .NET Conf 2023 has been announced. Save the date. So this will be celebrating the release of .NET 8. So November 14th to 16th. This will be the general availability launch of .NET 8. And will feature 80 live sessions, including a 24-hour continuous broadcast. So if you're at all compelled, you can stay up for the entire day and watch the whole thing. There will be live Q&A, games, prizes, digital swag. You may see a few folks that you may be familiar with on this webinar or / live stream. And so if you're at all curious about what's coming in .NET 8 and you want to get sort of like blasted with all the information of all the new goodness that's in there, this would be the event to go to. In addition to that, they also have a call for content that's also open. So this is using the Sessionize service. Sessionize is a great service. It basically allows you to submit conference sessions very quickly and easily. If you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like. And you can basically set up your sessions and then submit to multiple conferences, etc. So submissions are open now. They will be open to the end of the month, which is August 31st. And so if you're at all curious and you want to speak at an event like .NET Conf, I would encourage you strongly, go check that out. And so they're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things, primarily .NET 8. They'll also be talking about Maui. They'll be talking about Blazor, be talking about Cloud Native, etc. So lots and lots of stuff to consider. Make sure you save the date. There's a way to register this, but you'll find more information about this event at .NETconf.net. So again, that's November 14th to 16th, .NET Conf 2023. Be there or be square. CD Events embraces testing in CD pipelines. This is a blog post that I saw earlier. You may not know what CD Events is. That's fine if you haven't heard about it, but it's basically a specification that we're tracking quite closely. CD Events is sort of a specification that allows you to propagate events from a product that are generally agreed upon. So it defines a specification that says things like, when things occur, when things complete, relative to, say, a deployment, etc., raise this common set of events. Now, the reason why this is nice is because you can program one and only one receiver and then be aware of a variety of different solutions out there. So CD Events gives you a common format, a protocol for basically capturing these types of events or these notifications as they are raised by products and then respond to them accordingly. And this allows you to write pipelines that are much more robust, so you can swap pieces in and out if you so choose, and the pipeline should continue to work, which is great. This blog post, in addition, talks to the fact that they're adding testing events to CD events. So recently, they've added testing events to the CD events specifications under the testing events bucket to simplify the automation of testing processes from code through runtime. So testing events have the potential to revolutionize the adoption of testing practices by making it simple to add different testing tools across hundreds of pipelines. Testing events also address the need to standardize the collection of test results, as well as critical metadata, such as where the logs are stored, regardless of the test tool / framework, which enables visualization and centralizes the data produced during test execution in a more, quote, federated way. The reason why this is valuable is obviously because when you're testing out your pipelines, you want to do this in a way without having to actually run them, because having to run pipelines can be a bit of a challenge sometimes, especially when you're doing dummy data, etc. So these are test events that are run that you can capture and then provision in your pipeline, and then know that they'll work when you go live. So CD events is a specification. You'll find out more information on cdevents.dev if you're so inclined. There was also a webinar / podcast hosted by Alan over at TechStrong, and they talked about their latest episode was Advancing Testing and Continuous Delivery, Unveiling Challenges, Strategies, and the CD Foundation's Initiatives, where they talked to a bunch of folks about what is happening relative to this space. So again, CD events, this is something that we're tracking quite closely and something that will hopefully hit your radar soon. All right, moving along, Terraform Cloud now supports multiple configurations for dynamic provider credentials. So for those who didn't know, Terraform Cloud, Terraform Cloud, to start off with, is a hosted solution for, it's a really great solution for providing an environment for runs, for storing configuration, for integration with a variety of other tools as well. And so what they've recently identified is the need to obviously have dynamic provider credentials. These are, if you're utilizing a provider and you're wanting to get credentials propagated through that provider, you don't want to persist those credentials in, say, an HCL file. That would be bad, because if that gets compromised, obviously you can lose all your secrets. And so they tout, things like HashiCorp Vault, etc. But this is something that you can certainly use. And so what they're introducing now is multiple configurations for dynamic provider credentials. This is supported now as part of Terraform Cloud. And so you can see an example here where they're listing a bunch of variables that are, basically defined by these keys, their values, and then the category in which they are defined. So use dynamic provider credentials to uniquely authenticate multiple aliases of the same provider in a workspace. So it gives you that ability to pivot, if you will, or basically change depending upon the type of environment, etc., that you're possibly using, and then configure separate cloud provider aliases with different roles / permissions in different accounts or regions. So that's a nice sort of addition to the offering there for Terraform Cloud, which is awesome. Switching gears over to TeamCity. TeamCity Cloud 2023.07 is now available. Some major cloud profile improvements, enhanced space integration, and more. If you're using TeamCity Cloud, this is their hosted solution for TeamCity. There's TeamCity proper, which is their on-premise solution, which we support. TeamCity Cloud is that hosted solution there, and they've added some abilities to do things like EC2 updates. This is for images that you host there up on EC2. Let's see, configuring agent image to launch an instance from the last created AMI with a given tag value. So again, if you're utilizing AMIs, which you should, that's something that you can obviously enable. Support for EC2 Mac instances, that's nice. Running AWS EC2 Spot instance build agents using a Spot replacement score. Okay, and then a new UI for the EC2 plugin. That's cool. So new UI capability there. Lots of stuff's been happening around TeamCity. I mean, the stuff that we talked about last week relative to agents and the ability to turn on consoles and remote into running agents is awesome. So I'm really, really keen on some of the things that are happening there. Space integration. Space is their solution. It's sort of like, I guess you could call it a competitor to some of the other solutions out there. I'm thinking of things like Jira, etc. Space is basically your software development platform for a variety of things that you want to do relative to change management issues, etc. And so they obviously integrate with TeamCity, given the fact they're both at JetBrains. So they give a bunch of integrations there, which is great. Some UI enhancements. Sakura, I always get this name mixed up. I always think of Shakira, the famous pop star, obviously, but Sakura UI is their new UI that we build an extension for TeamCity, and we use their old UI framework, but they have a new one called Sakura, and they're revamping their agent parameters tab. So this is typically when you configure an agent in TeamCity, this is how you obviously remote talk to I guess for lack of a better term, a worker. And so there is a bunch of stuff that you obviously want to configure. And so the parameters tab allows you to define things like configuration parameters, etc. And so they revamped that using the new UI framework that they have, which is great. And so those and other features are now available for folks running TeamCity Cloud 2023.07. Behind the scenes with the folks building Overflow AI. So last week we talked a little bit about how Stack Overflow has added a capability called Overflow AI that utilizes a language model, a large language model for generating questions, for getting better search results across Stack Overflow. And they have integrations with Slack and with Visual Studio Code, etc. And so I love posts like this. This is a podcast that they did with the folks who built it. And I love these sort of behind the scenes. It's kind of like the behind the music sort of show where you talk to the folks who built the technology. And so they talked to Ellen, who's the director of product innovation, and Jody, who's the CTO at Stack Overflow, about how they built out Overflow AI. And so really riveting interview. And it's something I would definitely recommend you check out. Another post from JetBrains. Sorry, a little bit over the map here, but I saw this one. This is from the folks running the .NET Tools blog, introducing predictive debugging, a game-changing look into the future. So Matthias wrote this blog post of talking a little bit about some of the changes. Obviously, love the memes. So proper debugging tools, programmer, console.log for everything. Console, print line. Print line's always the way to do it, I guess. But that's the way I've lived for many, many years. You'll take console.log out of my dead cold hands, I guess. But there's got to be a better way, right? So they talk a little bit about how having a predictive debugger capability built into tools like ReSharper, which is what they talk about here, but it will also be available in Writer in the future, is something that you can integrate now and turn on. So inside of ReSharper, which is obviously running here, you'll turn on the predictive debugger. This is where they're showing things that they deem through the compiler, I guess, and others, predicted values that are coming out, and then the predictive debugger will obviously run in concert with that. So what does this look like once enabled? So it will look something like this, where in this example here, and if you've used any other debug tools, this may look familiar, but you can see we've set up a breakpoint here. I believe, no, that's where the execution line is. You can see that it's gone ahead and determined that there are some values here that may get returned as part of this. And they do a little bit of highlighting here relative to that to show you where things are going to be evaluated. So expressions are evaluated in green or red, indicate the expression is evaluated to be true or false. So green is true, red is false. Statements that are grayed out, like these ones here, mean that the code path won't execute. So these are like little syntax signals that give you that, semantic signals. And then those that are highlighted in blue show the predicted values after executing the corresponding statement. So this is what it's predicting the values will be. So in examples here, like, oh, okay, kind will be even, outcome will be the number 2 is even, et cetera, et cetera. Yellow or red inlays like this one show where the prediction ends. So for example, when a method returns or an exception is thrown or it's either caught or uncaught, et cetera, the program halts. That's what this is showing here. So this is sort of the capabilities that the predictor debugger will have on your debug experience, which is great. I love capabilities like this. I don't feel like they get in the way. I love the fact that they've done it through syntax highlighting as well, because it doesn't get in the way. You don't have to add anything. You just turn it on and it just lights up. And if you want, you can just turn it off after the fact. But these sorts of things are great. And so I think this is definitely something that I will be keen on checking out. They talk a little bit about enhancing predictions with annotations. So how this is done. Typically within environments like this, there's a way to actually highlight these things quite simply. If you've been using any other tools out there, other IDEs actually have capabilities like this, but this is something you can definitely check out. So that's a blog post there that you can check out if you're so inclined. I love the memes, which is great. Again, this is from the folks over at JetBrains, specifically the .NET Tools blog, introducing predictive debugging. Fantastic. Announcing Crossplane 113, security, quality, and maturing key features. So Crossplane is a pretty popular solution for folks who are interested in configuration management. This is under the auspices of the CNCF, or the Cloud Native Foundation. And so Crossplane has been slowly but steadily doing a number of improvements. And so as part of the CNCF project, they have to go through security audits. So they've done one, etc. They've added new features. I won't get into the nitty gritty here because I think it's infrastructure, which tends to be a little bit boring, unfortunately. But if you're at all curious, you can check out Crossplane 113. That's available there. You can iterate through obviously all the changes there, which is great. And I like their website. It's pretty colorful. They got the sort of lollipop thing going on, which is cool. So if you're wanting to do integration with configuration around control planes, etc., this is something you can check out. So that's crossplane.io, which is great. Cool. Moving right along, digital transformation roadmap, an update on Q2 2023 trends and strategies. This is a blog post put out by the CNCF, or hosted on the CNCF website. Samir, who's the Senior Director Marketing at MSys Technology, wrote this about some of the digital transformations that relative to their roadmap, the trends that they're seeing. So I'll just highlight them here. One, continued rise of the implementation of low-code platforms. That is certainly true. I've seen this myself. Low-code is not to be downplayed. I think if you're a developer, you tend to look at low-code as, or no-code as, ugh, I don't know if I like that. We've always been promised that for years, haven't we? So low code is actually a reality. You're seeing this a lot, especially around workflows and workflow engines. I'm thinking of folks like Opsera. I'm thinking of folks like Zapier or Workato or other folks like that, where low code, where you do this sort of like, I hate to say drag and drop, but it's sort of akin to that. Very, very minimal configuration settings, but you're just basically wiring up these. And like, if you think about it, Terraform kind of works this way, right? If you think about the provider model, providers do all the heavy lifting for you. And so modules also work the same way, right? It's like, it's kind of sort of like a low code solution in that regard. So the implementation of low code solutions is certainly, or platforms is certainly something that I think is going to continue to take off. And don't come at me if you think that Terraform isn't a low code solution. I would justify that it is. Depending upon how you use it, though. If you're using the CDK, that's definitely code. If you're using only HCL, that's definitely low code. There's not a lot of code in HCL, unless, of course, you do other things. But increased adoption of cloud computing, yeah, well, duh, that's obvious. Continuing integration of AI and ML in the Q2 2023, so the second quarter of so these are some of the trends that they're seeing. I think that one's kind of also self-explanatory. We're seeing a lot of traction around AI, certainly solutions that are coming up. Intelligent search is transferring the way we harness data insights. Yeah, that's data analysis, etc. Intelligent search, obviously, everyone wants intelligent search. Everyone I know hates. Most folks don't use the integrated search that sites provide. They tend to use something like Google and then specify a site qualifier, because that will get you the answer you're looking for. But I think with the addition of AI specifically, if you're able to integrate large language models within your search criteria, you'll be able to find answers very quickly. You're seeing this in a lot of different ways. You're seeing this with Overflow AI, which we just talked about. You're seeing it in other ways as well, where by providing a semantic model on top of a large language model that you can query and talk to and get the answers you're looking for, it's almost better than actually referencing the web page itself. Business process automation is driving organizational efficiency. Yes, we are in the business of automation ourselves, and we agree. Obviously, automation is very, very key. Blockchain investment, sure. The future of work is here. Virtual collaboration, yeah. I mean, COVID obviously showed us that. Obviously, a lot of folks working from home. There's definitely a resistance for folks to come back into the office. Virtual collaboration obviously is key to that. So lots of stuff there. You can check that out, obviously, up on the CNCF website, which is at cncf.io. This was a cool blog post I saw from the folks over at GitHub, how we build containerized services at GitHub using GitHub. So learn about how we build containerized services that power microservices on github.com platform and many other internal tools. So this is sort of like behind the music. I love these behind the music posts talking about how they utilize containers in a very rich way to build out, obviously, their services. And I think these posts are really good because what they do is they make you as a developer feel better, right? A lot of times you get a lot of advice from the industry, like use it this way, use this platform. This is the right way to do it. And then when you see it in a practical sense, like, no, we do it this way. This is how we do it. There's a lot more validity to the claims that are made in a post like this, as opposed to do it this way, and we'll tell you later how it's done by customers. I think these behind the music ones are great because it's warts and all. Basically, it's like we had a problem with X and we did it this way, and now we're using Y. So their main development ecosystem for GitHub.com, they're utilizing Kubernetes ecosystem of tools like Kubernetes, Docker, load balancers, and many custom apps. Kubernetes is their base layer, and then they factor stuff on top. That is pretty self-obvious. If you're deploying to clusters that need high availability, Kubernetes obviously is the internet operating system now, pretty much. Benefits of the paid path. So there are hundreds of services at GitHub. This is absolutely true. This is how GitHub was originally built. GitHub was always a Ruby application, if memory serves, and then they built them out using microservices. I know that there's been a trend within the industry towards consolidation now. Microservices, I think, have a bit of a bad rap at the moment because a lot of people find them confusing. So small internal tools to external APIs for production workloads. Just to give you an example, like the profile picture service is a thing that they use Go for. So you find out these little stories around what happens at GitHub, like primarily based on Ruby, but there's little small sections that they use, like they'll use Rust for this service or Go for that service. So kind of interesting. So they're talking about utilizing Kubernetes quite a bit. They utilize, excuse me, Hubot, which is basically a CLI platform for scaffolding applications. Very popular and allows you to do this via GitHub Apps, which is an integration point within GitHub. Allows you to stand these things up. It will stub out a bunch of things, including a YAML file, which is basically the lifeblood of how you deploy via Kubernetes. Defines your services, defines your service endpoints, networking, etc. Deploying the service is done through a deploy command. And then from there, securing services will be based off configuration, which I would imagine they use the tool for somewhere. I don't see it listed, but there you go. From a deployment flow, this is from merge to rollout. So you can see they build a Docker image here. They then they then propagate those to a registry. This kind of looks like how Octopus works, right? So you propagate containers to a registry, then you pull them down via Octopus through a deployment process. And then the deployment process goes and executes a variety of steps. And those steps will provision environments, etc., if you so wish. But this is executed here as part of their build systems. I would argue this is the wrong way to do it. You should not be using a build system for deployment. You should use a deployment system for deployment. But that's me. So anyways, Hubot will utilize ChatOps. ChatOps is a way in which you can communicate through a service like Slack or Teams. You can execute commands, and then those commands will do various things on your behalf. Alternatively, ChatOps can also be used in the context of a issue thread in GitHub. So you can fire off slash commands in GitHub, and those will also perform commands for you. So I would imagine that's what they're doing there. So this is how they fire off. And then in the end, they talk about how it benefits them. So this is a great post. I think I love posts like this. I think this is something that you should check out. If anything, their war stories like this are great to read because they make you feel better as a developer. Okay, great. It's not just me. I'm doing things a certain way and others are as well. Another post from the folks over at GitHub introducing code referencing for GitHub Copilot. Today, we're announcing a private beta for GitHub Copilot with code referencing that includes a filter to detect code suggestions matching public code on GitHub. That's a bit of a mouthful, but there you go. So reading through this, make more informed decisions about code you use in the rare case where a GitHub Copilot suggestion matches public code. Naughty, naughty, don't copy. This update will show a list of repositories where that code appears and their licenses. Sign up for the private beta today. So I guess this is a way in which through Copilot, it will notify you whether or not you're seeing reference code inside. So here's an example of something like this. So you can see that this code here on the left matches something that we found in our language model. Let me go ahead and play that again. I think this is on repeat. There we go. So, yep, public code match detected. Tell me, okay, we saw this, etc., etc. So there you go. So that's now supported as part of the Copilot experience, which is there. The reason why this matters, they talk a little bit about this. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're compliant relative to various licenses, etc. I would imagine. Obviously, sometimes you'll copy code that you shouldn't, that has bugs in it. And I've seen many examples of that, where you see bug after bug propagated across project and project. That's because people, for whatever reason, they're leveraging the same code. I don't know why. So, anyways, this is now available as part of GitHub Copilot. Our friends over at BuildKite. BuildKite is an awesome CI tool. We're fans. They're based in Australia. BuildKite is a great solution if you're at all curious. Built on Go, super performant, super fast. They have a blog post that compares it with Jenkins. So choosing the right tool for you. Obviously, this is sort of a competitive technology, but that's okay. I like these sort of, shootouts, if you will. It's not really a shootout, but it's, their take on how they differ from Jenkins. And I think the thing about Jenkins is obviously, given the fact that it's propagated large and wide, etc. Jenkins is not always the best. So Jenkins is kind of ugly. It's not the best interface. It's kind of clunky as well in some regards. It's got some issues. It's not the most performance CI solution I've ever used either. So if you're looking at how you can do better, BuildKite offers a solution there. BuildKite obviously provides a hybrid model. So what does that mean? So typically when you're utilizing a CI system, you'll have to, it's kind of an all or nothing. Either everything lives behind the firewall or everything lives in sort of a cloud-based SaaS sort of model. Very rarely will you come across a solution that employs a hybrid model where basically the federated aspect of the CI system lives in the cloud, where it should, basically a coordinator, if you will. And then all your source code and assets and agents live behind the firewall, and there's just a communication channel that exists between the two. That's essentially how BuildKite works. Arguably, you could make the same case for workers, etc., in Octopus, or you could say the same thing for agents within TeamCity and other solutions like that. But BuildKite touts this approach uniquely as their sort of secret sauce as part of this. So I love their BuildKite's dashboard. I think it's one of the sexiest dashboards out there. It's super awesome. And then their performance is fantastic. Like they have some really, really good performance metrics. So if you're at all curious about how BuildKite compares to Jenkins, you can take it with a grain of salt, but you can read this blog post and check it out there. And then finally, wrapping up, building GitLab with GitLab. Again, this is another. I don't think they timed this. It was like GitLab and GitHub both are talking about how they're building services eating their own dog food, but how GitLab.com inspired Dedicated. So earlier this year, they talked a little bit about they have the general availability of GitLab Dedicated, their single tenancy software as a service offering, very much similar to a GitHub Enterprise, if you think about it. And Dedicated, which addresses the needs of customers with stringent compliance requirements, maintaining speed, efficiency, and security, was developed from the lessons we learned building and using GitLab.com, our multi-tenancy model. So what they've done is they've basically taken their multi-tenancy model based on a SaaS, which is GitLab.com, and then shrunk it down into GitLab Dedicated. For a variety of reasons, folks will want this. And then so they talk about in this, again, behind the music, about building GitLab with GitLab. And so they talk a little bit about how some of the things that they need to take into account. These are different problems, obviously. When you scale out or you consolidate in, there are different concerns at play. Obviously, if you're consolidating in, like they did with GitLab Dedicated, there you're promoting, or I think the best way to put it is you're espousing things like security, your reliability, robustness, etc. Availability might be one, but I doubt it. Whereas if you're scaling out, you're obviously appealing to a large user base there. So that's a multi-tenant sort of scenario. So improved automated deployments, GitLab.com, permanent installation, great deal of history. Some interesting history there, by the way. I've read a lot about GitLab in the past. Originally, it was deployed as a single instance on Amazon AWS before migrating to Azure, where it continues to scale out. From Azure, it migrated to its current cloud, Google Cloud Platform. Since then, many customer workloads have migrated to Kubernetes, and are supported by GKE, which is obviously Google's. It's the one of the best for hosting Kubernetes in terms of cloud-based Kubernetes hosted. We GitLab dedicated. We are building smaller instances that rely on automation, repeatability, and deterministic environments. That one's important because with SaaS, you typically get non-deterministic stuff. We'll give you a runner when you're ready. When we say so, don't worry about it. Whereas with some cases like environments where those things are pre-provisioned, for example, sometimes you get no say in these. And environments can be anything, basically. All customer tenant GitLab tenant instance operations must be 100% automated, including provisioning, upgrades, scaling, configuration changes, and any other routine operations. The stack relies heavily on the GitLab Environment Toolkit, or GET, Cloud Native Hybrid, which uses the GitLab Helm charts for stateless workloads. Helm charts are a really good way to provision Kubernetes instances. They're utilized for configuration, etc. We have one also for Octopus, if you're all curious. You want to run Octopus on a Kubernetes cluster, you can use our Helm chart. We now have a Helm chart for that. Sorry, I keep bringing it back to Octopus. Imagine that. And Omnibus for deployments to VMs. Git helps with the deployment targeting, reference architectures, yada, yada, yada. So lots of stuff there. Talks a little bit about the history there. And so, yeah, definitely something worth checking out if you're all curious, especially in the context of Kubernetes deployments, which is always gnarly. So anyways, I thought that was kind of cool, and that's why I referenced it there. Anyways, that about wraps it up for this Friday. I hope you learned a thing or two, which is great. We'll be here again next week. Hopefully, Jim will have recovered from his illness. But until then, I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you here on the next edition of Deploy on Friday. Take care.